My name is Madison Hayes, and at 24, I've already experienced the kind of betrayal most people never face in a lifetime. 3 years ago, my parents and brother orchestrated my expulsion from Princeton University, destroying my full scholarship, pristine reputation, and medical career dreams. They watched me collapse into nothing, homeless and broken. Now, as CEO of my own healthcare tech company, they're begging to be part of my life again. They need me. Before I share how I gave my family a lesson they'll never forget, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button if family betrayal stories resonate with you. Growing up in Westchester County, New York, I was always the gifted child. My parents, Robert and Diana Hayes, presented themselves as the picture-perfect support system for their academically talented daughter. My father worked as a financial advisor at a prestigious firm, while my mother ran a successful interior design business. From the outside, we were the enviable American family with our beautiful colonial home, summer vacations in Martha's Vineyard, and my impressive academic record. Madison has always been special, my mother would tell her friends at charity fundraisers, squeezing my shoulder just a little too hard. She gets straight A's without even trying. That wasn't true, of course. I studied relentlessly, often until 2 or 3 in the morning, driven by both my natural curiosity and the impossibly high expectations my parents had set. Nothing less than perfection was acceptable in the Hayes household. My brother Noah was 2 years older and attended Cornell University, studying business administration. We seemed close during childhood, sharing inside jokes and defending each other from neighborhood bullies. But something shifted when I began winning national science competitions in high school, while Noah struggled to maintain a B average. Another trophy for the golden child, he'd mutter whenever I brought home an award, his smile tight and eyes cold. I'd brush it off, attributing his comments to normal sibling rivalry rather than the deep-seated resentment that was actually brewing. When my acceptance letter to Princeton arrived along with a full scholarship to study molecular biology, my parents hosted an elaborate dinner party. 30 of their closest friends came to celebrate, though in retrospect, the event was more about their status as parents of a Princeton scholar than my achievement. We always knew Madison would achieve greatness, my father announced during his toast, champagne glass glittering under our dining room chandelier. Her success reflects the values we've instilled in her. What no one at that dinner knew was how my mother had criticized my essay for hours before I submitted it, or how my father had questioned whether Princeton was worth it when Yale had been his preference. Their pride was conditional, always, tainted with control. During my first 2 years at Princeton, I thrived. My passion for biomedical research caught the attention of Dr. Jonathan Miller, a pioneering researcher in genetic therapy applications. By my junior year, I was working as his research assistant, focusing on an innovative approach to treating rare genetic disorders. Your intuitive understanding of these complex pathways is exceptional, Madison, Dr. Miller told me after I'd identified a potential new delivery mechanism for gene therapy. You have the mind of a true researcher. My dream was to complete medical school and specialize in genetic medicine, developing treatments for children with life-threatening genetic conditions. I envisioned a future where I could transform theoretical research into practical treatments, saving lives that would otherwise be lost to inherited diseases. When I called home with news of my success in the lab, my mother's response was tepid. "That's nice, dear. But remember, research positions don't pay nearly as well as private practice. Noah just got an internship at Goldman Sachs." Noah had become my parents' focus after his academic struggles in sophomore year. They hired tutors, made connections for internships, and invested significantly in his success after he nearly failed out. Meanwhile, they treated my achievements as expected, unworthy of special attention. During winter break of my junior year, I noticed small incidents that should have been warning signs. My application for a prestigious summer program mysteriously disappeared from my father's home office where I'd left it for mailing. My research notes were rearranged on my desk. My laptop crashed, losing a week's worth of work, even though I distinctly remembered saving backups. "You're probably just stressed and forgetful," my mother said dismissively when I mentioned these occurrences. "You always were in your own little world." Then came the announcement that would unknowingly set everything in motion. Dr. Miller recommended me for an exclusive research opportunity at Oxford University, a 6-month program that would allow me to work alongside world leaders in genetic medicine and potentially co-author a groundbreaking paper. "This could define your career," Dr. Miller explained. "Opportunities like this come once in a lifetime." I was ecstatic. This was validation of everything I'd worked for, a stepping stone to my dreams, and proof that I was on the right path. Little did I know, sharing this news with my family would trigger a catastrophic chain of events that would ultimately destroy everything I'd built. The night before returning to Princeton after winter break, I shared my exciting news at dinner. My father's fork paused midway to his mouth. My mother's smile froze. Noah choked slightly on his water. "Oxford? England?" my father asked carefully. "That seems rather extreme for a summer program." I explained enthusiastically about the opportunity, the connections I'd make, and the potential publication. I was too caught up in my excitement to notice the shadow that passed between my parents, or the calculating look in Noah's eyes. That moment was the beginning of the end of my academic career, though I wouldn't understand that until it was far too late. "England is so far away," my mother said the next morning as she helped me pack. Her voice had that syrupy quality she used when trying to manipulate a situation. "And their medical standards are different from American practices. This might actually hurt your applications to American medical schools." I was surprised by her negativity but brushed it off. "Dr. Miller says it's one of the most prestigious programs in the world. The connections alone would be invaluable." "Jonathan Miller isn't family," my father interjected, appearing at my bedroom door. "He doesn't have your best interests at heart like we do." This was the beginning of a subtle campaign to undermine my confidence about Oxford. Noah joined in later that day, casually mentioning a news article about funding cuts to international research programs. "Would hate to see you stranded in England when the money runs out," he said with feigned concern. "Plus, Victoria Chen turned down Oxford last year, and she just got accepted to Harvard Medical early admission. Victoria was my academic rival since freshman year. We'd competed for the same research position with Dr. Miller, and I'd gotten it. The mention of her name was clearly meant to trigger my competitive instinct. If Victoria had rejected Oxford, maybe I should too. But I remained firm. This was my dream, and I wasn't going to let their doubts cloud my judgment. I completed the application that night, detailing my research experience, and including letters of recommendation from Dr. Miller and 2 other professors. The next morning, I couldn't find the application packet anywhere in my room. "Mom, have you seen my Oxford application? It was on my desk last night." She didn't look up from her coffee. "I haven't touched anything in your room, Madison. You probably misplaced it." I tore apart my suitcases, checked under furniture, and even searched through the trash. Nothing. With just hours before my train back to campus, I made a desperate decision. I would recreate the entire application from memory. For 6 hours straight, I rewrote my personal statement, recontacted my professors for new copies of recommendation letters, and compiled my research abstract again. My father repeatedly suggested I take this as a sign that Oxford wasn't meant to be, but I refused to give up. "I'm concerned about your obsessive behavior, Madison," he said, watching me frantically type. "This isn't healthy." I managed to complete a new application just in time to make my train. As I rushed out the door, I caught a glimpse of something strange. My mother closing my laptop, which I hadn't been using. Why was she on my computer? Back at Princeton, I discovered that someone had accessed my email account during the break. Several messages from Dr. Miller and the Oxford program coordinator had been marked as read, though I hadn't seen them. A cold feeling settled in my stomach as I realized someone had been monitoring my communications. That night, I received an email from home. "Left your Oxford application on the hall table. Found it after you left. We'll mail it tomorrow." Love. Mom. The timing was suspicious. If they'd found it, why not call me immediately? I called home and my father answered. Dad, did you or Mom look through my emails while I was home? A pause. What are you talking about, Madison? My email shows. It was accessed multiple times from our home network while I was there, but not by me. You're being paranoid, he said sharply. Why would we care about your emails? Your mother probably used your laptop by mistake. But it wasn't just emails. When I checked my research notes, I found subtle discrepancies. Data points slightly, altered reference citations changed. These were specific details only someone with scientific knowledge would target. Noah, with his undergrad biology courses, would have that knowledge. When I called him to ask, his response was immediate and defensive. Are you accusing me of sabotage? That's insane, Madison. You're my sister. Maybe you're working too hard and making mistakes. The gaslighting was so effective that I actually scheduled an appointment with the Student Health Center, wondering if stress was affecting my memory. The doctor found nothing wrong and suggested I change my passwords and secure my documents better. I took that advice to heart. I changed every password, started using encrypted cloud storage, and kept my research notes with me at all times. I even set up a simple trap, a document labeled Oxford Final Application, containing slightly incorrect information, saved prominently on my desktop. 2 days later, I checked the document's access history and found it had been viewed remotely from an unrecognized IP address. Someone was definitely spying on my work. Despite all this interference, 3 weeks later, I received the news. I'd been accepted to the Oxford program. The acceptance email arrived while I was in lab, and I literally screamed with joy, causing Dr. Miller to rush over from his office. You earned this, he said, giving me a rare hug. Oxford is getting one of Princeton's finest. I was ecstatic, but also nervous about telling my family. I decided to call rather than email, wanting to hear their real-time reaction. That's wonderful, my mother said after a long pause. Your father and I will need to discuss the financial aspects. The program covers all expenses, Mom. I already told you that. There are always hidden costs, Madison. And have you considered what this means for your graduation timeline? You might fall behind. This was the first mention of potential delays. In graduation, though the program was specifically designed to provide academic credit, I explained this again, growing increasingly frustrated. We just want what's best for you, my father said, taking the phone. Oxford is so far away. If something goes wrong, we won't be able to help you. Their lack of enthusiasm hurt, but I was determined. I'm going, I said firmly. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. What I didn't know then was that my Declaration of Independence had sealed my fate. My family had moved from subtle undermining to active sabotage. While I prepared for Oxford, secure in the belief that I'd overcome their interference, they were planning something far more devastating. The next weekend, Noah surprised me with a visit to campus. Can't I check in on my brilliant sister? He said when I asked about the unexpected trip. Plus, I wanted to see this famous lab of yours. I proudly showed him my workspace, introduced him to fellow researchers, and even to Dr. Miller briefly. What I didn't notice was Noah carefully observing my login procedures, the location of my physical research notes, and the names of colleagues who might have access to my work. I was still blind to the true nature of my family's betrayal. I mistook their interference for overprotectiveness, their sabotage for accidents, and their manipulation for concern. That naivety would cost me everything. 1 month before my Oxford program was to begin, I received an unexpected opportunity. Dr. Miller asked me to prepare a comprehensive presentation on our recent research findings for the university's annual Molecular Innovation Symposium. This prestigious event would be attended by faculty, graduate students, and even representatives from pharmaceutical companies and research foundations. This is a vote of confidence in your work, Madison, Dr. Miller explained. It's unusual for an undergraduate to present, but your contributions to this project have been exceptional. I was thrilled and immediately began organizing my presentation. This would be the perfect capstone to my Princeton experience before heading to Oxford. The symposium was scheduled for May 15th, giving me 3 weeks to prepare while finishing final exams. What I couldn't see was the frantic activity happening behind the scenes. My parents had moved beyond passive interference to active conspiracy after realizing their subtle tactics hadn't deterred me from Oxford. The day after I shared news of my upcoming presentation, my parents invited Victoria Chen's family to dinner. The Chens were puzzled by the sudden invitation. Our families had met at university events but weren't particularly close. Noah, home for the weekend, joined the dinner and steered the conversation toward academic competition. "Madison and Victoria have always been neck and neck," he said casually over dessert. "It must be difficult knowing Madison got the research position you wanted, Victoria." Victoria, always composed, merely smiled. "We each have our own paths. I'm quite happy with my research placement in Dr. Taylor's quantum biology lab." What no one at the table knew was that Noah had already begun laying groundwork for their plan. He'd accidentally encountered Victoria on campus during his visit and manipulated her into discussing her research methods in detail, recording their conversation on his phone. He now had examples of her specific academic language and approach, material, that could be used to frame me. After the Chens left, my parents and Noah held a private meeting in my father's study. "Madison has become too independent," my father said, pacing the room. "This Oxford program would take her completely out of our sphere of influence. If she establishes connections internationally, she'll never come back to the path we've planned." My mother nodded. "She's always been stubborn. Even as a child, she insisted on making her own decisions rather than accepting our guidance." "She's ungrateful," Noah added. "Do you know how many students would kill for the advantages she's had? And she acts like she's done it all herself." They decided that night that more direct action was necessary. My academic reputation was my most prized possession. It was also my greatest vulnerability. Noah, with his business education, proposed a 3-part plan: access my research, insert plagiarized material, and ensure the plagiarism was discovered at the most damaging moment possible. My parents agreed without hesitation, seeing it as necessary intervention rather than the devastating betrayal it actually was. The following weekend, Noah returned to Princeton with a specific mission. He'd cultivated a friendship with Jason, a graduate student in Dr. Miller's lab, by claiming interest in the program for after his business degree. "I'd love to see how real research is done," Noah told Jason. "My sister is always so secretive about her work." Jason, flattered by the attention and unaware of any ulterior motives, gave Noah a detailed tour of the lab when most students were away for Saturday activities. While Jason proudly explained equipment, Noah noted the location of my workstation, the shared lab computer I used, and the security protocols in place. "Madison mentioned she's working on her big presentation," Noah said casually. "She seemed stressed about it." "She shouldn't be," Jason replied. "Her work on the targeted delivery system is remarkable. Dr. Miller thinks it could lead to a publication." This innocent conversation gave Noah crucial information: the specific nature of my research focus and confirmation that the upcoming presentation was significant. Meanwhile, my mother contacted an old college friend who now worked in academic publishing, claiming she needed advice for a novel she was writing about academic misconduct. "I want to make sure the plagiarism scenario is realistic," she explained. "How exactly would someone insert plagiarized material in a way that would be irrefutably traced back to them?" Armed with expert advice, my parents and Noah refined their plan. They needed access to my actual research files, which I now kept, securely protected after the earlier incidents. The opportunity came when I least expected it. 3 days before my presentation, I received an urgent call from my mother. "Your grandmother has had a fall," she said, voice tight with what I now know was feigned concern. "She's asking for you, Madison. The doctors aren't sure how serious it is." My grandmother Elizabeth had practically raised me while my parents built their careers. The thought of her injured sent me into immediate panic. "I'll come right away," I said, already packing a small overnight bag. "Is she in the hospital?" "Yes, Westchester Medical. Your father will pick you up at the train station." I notified Dr. Miller and my professors, requesting a 24-hour absence. Everyone was understanding. I rushed to the train station without securing my research materials. The first critical mistake. In my hurry, I left my laptop in my dorm room, password protected but not encrypted. When I arrived at Westchester Medical, my grandmother was indeed there, for a scheduled checkup. She had experienced a minor dizzy spell days earlier, but was perfectly fine. She was surprised to see me burst into her examination room in a panic. "Madison? What on earth are you doing here, dear?" The confusion on her face confirmed what I was already beginning to suspect. I'd been deliberately misled. "Mom said you had a fall. That you were asking for me." My grandmother's brow furrowed. "I did no such thing. I'm just here for my regular blood pressure check. Your mother drove me." My mother appeared then, all innocent surprise. "Oh, did I overreact?" The nurse said something about a fall risk, and I just assumed, "I'm so sorry for the confusion." It was a masterful performance. I couldn't prove it was intentional, and arguing would make me seem irrational and uncaring. I spent the night at my grandmother's insistence, sleeping in my old bedroom while seething with suspicion. What I didn't know was that Noah had already flown back to Princeton and, using a key I didn't know he had entered my dorm room. He installed monitoring software on my laptop, copied my research files, and placed a USB drive with Victoria's research methodology in my desk drawer as backup evidence. That night, while I slept at my parents' house, Noah and my father worked methodically to alter my presentation and research notes. They didn't replace everything. That would be too obvious. Instead, they strategically inserted 3 paragraphs from an obscure research paper published in a specialized European journal, modifying them slightly but maintaining the distinct language and methodology. They also inserted a section that closely mirrored Victoria's unpublished work, which Noah had recorded during their casual conversation. The changes were subtle enough that I might not notice during a final review, especially when rushing, but obvious enough that a trained academic would immediately recognize the different writing style and approach. The next morning, my father drove me to the train station. "Good luck with your presentation tomorrow," he said as I got out of the car. "We're very proud of you." For a moment, I felt a rush of warmth. Despite their strange behavior, they were still my parents, and their approval meant something to me. That lingering emotional attachment blinded me to the magnitude of their betrayal. Back at Princeton, I had just 24 hours to finalize my presentation. I reviewed my slides, practiced my delivery, and checked my research notes. I noticed some formatting, inconsistencies, but attributed them to computer errors when transferring files. I fixed what I could and focused on being prepared for the biggest presentation of my undergraduate career. That night, my parents called to wish me luck. "You're going to do wonderfully," my mother said. "This is such an important day for you." "We wish we could be there," my father added. "But we'll be thinking of you." Noah texted, "Knock 'em dead, sis. Your hardest critic is rooting for you." Their supportive messages felt like a return to normalcy, reinforcing my desire to believe in their good intentions. I went to bed feeling confident and reconnected to my family. The morning of the presentation, I performed a final review of my materials. Something caught my eye, a paragraph that didn't quite sound like my writing. I started to investigate further, but was interrupted by a call from Dr. Miller, asking me to come to the auditorium early to test the projection system. "I'll fix it after the run-through," I told myself, closing my laptop and heading to the venue. That decision would cost me everything I'd worked for. The Princeton Molecular Innovation Symposium was held in Richardson Auditorium, a grand venue usually reserved for prestigious university events. As I entered that morning, the space was already buzzing with activity, technical staff adjusting, lighting, graduate students arranging programs, faculty members chatting in small groups. I spotted Dr. Miller near the stage, deep in conversation with Dr. Eliza Thompson, the department chair, and Dr. William Chen, Victoria's research advisor. A twinge of nervousness flickered through me. I hadn't expected Victoria's mentor to be present. "Ah, Madison," Dr. Miller called, waving me over. "Perfect timing. We're just finalizing the presentation order." I joined their small circle, clutching my laptop. "Good morning, professors. I'm ready whenever you need me." Dr. Thompson smiled warmly. "We've been looking forward to your presentation, Madison. Jonathan speaks very highly of your work." Dr. Chen nodded politely, but said nothing. I wondered if he resented me for securing the position Victoria had wanted. The technical check went smoothly, and I returned to a seat in the front row to make the final changes I'd noticed earlier. But before I could open the file, students and faculty began filing in, and Dr. Miller signaled that we were about to begin. The symposium opened with remarks from the dean, followed by 2 graduate student presentations. I was scheduled third, a prime spot that Dr. Miller had advocated for, believing my work deserved prominent attention. When my name was called, I approached the podium with confidence born of thorough preparation and genuine passion for my research. The audience of about 200 people looked expectantly as my opening slide appeared on the large screen. "Good morning," I began. "Today I'll be presenting our lab's recent advancements in targeted delivery mechanisms for gene therapy applications in rare genetic disorders." For the first 10 minutes, my presentation flowed perfectly. I explained our methodology, presented preliminary data, and outlined the potential clinical applications of our findings. The audience was engaged, with several professors nodding appreciatively at our novel approach. Then I reached the section on theoretical applications. The part I had noticed looked different during my hurried morning review. As I began explaining the slide, Dr. Chen suddenly straightened in his seat, his expression shifting from polite interest to intense focus. He leaned over to whisper something to Dr. Thompson, whose eyebrows shot up in response. I continued speaking, though a sense of unease began to grow. 2 slides later, Dr. Miller's posture changed too, his normally relaxed demeanor becoming rigid, eyes narrowing as he stared at the methodology I was describing. Just as I reached my conclusion, Dr. Chen raised his hand. This was unusual. Questions were typically held until after presentations. "Excuse me, Ms. Hayes," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the auditorium. "Could you go back to slide 16, please?" Confused but compliant, I clicked back to the specified slide. "This theoretical framework you're presenting," Dr. Chen continued, "is remarkably similar to unpublished work from Dr. Taylor's lab. In fact, the language is nearly identical to a draft paper my student Victoria Chen has been developing for the past 6 months." The room fell silent. My heart began pounding so loudly I was certain everyone could hear it. "That's not possible," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "This is original research based on Dr. Miller's previous work and my own analysis." Dr. Miller stood now, his expression troubled. "Madison, can we see slide 22 again?" I clicked forward, hands shaking slightly. He studied the slide for a moment, then asked, "Are you familiar with Dr. Henrik Johansson's 2018 paper in the European Journal of Genetic Medicine?" "I've read it," I answered truthfully. It was part of my literature review. "This paragraph," Dr. Miller said, pointing to the screen, "is taken almost verbatim from that paper, without attribution." "That's impossible," I stammered. "I always cite my sources. There must be some mistake." But, as I looked more closely at the text highlighted on the screen, I realized with horror that he was right. The paragraph wasn't in my original draft. It had been inserted, along with 2 others I now noticed with growing panic. Dr. Thompson stood up. "I think we should adjourn this presentation pending further investigation. Madison, please gather your materials and come to my office immediately." The walk across campus to the department chair's office was the longest of my life. Dr. Miller and Dr. Thompson flanked me like guards, while Dr. Chen followed a few paces behind, already on his phone, undoubtedly calling Victoria. In Dr. Thompson's office, they asked for my laptop and research notes. As they examined my files, I tried desperately to explain that something was wrong, that I would never plagiarize. The text must have been altered, I insisted. I've been having strange issues with my files recently. Madison, Dr. Miller said, gently. These sections are fully integrated into your presentation and notes. They're not simple cut-and-paste jobs. They've been carefully woven into your work. Someone must have accessed my computer, I said, growing desperate. Please, you have to believe me. Dr. Thompson sighed. We've received an anonymous ethics complaint about your work yesterday, with specific citations of the sources you allegedly plagiarized. The complaint included screenshots of your drafts showing the plagiarized content. Anonymous? I echoed. Who would? A knock interrupted us. Dr. Thompson's assistant entered with a printout. This just came in. The student requested anonymity, but given the seriousness of the allegations, the ethics committee felt you should know. Dr. Thompson scanned the document, her expression grave. The complaint was filed by your brother, Noah Hayes. He claims he discovered the plagiarism when helping you proofread your work. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Noah hadn't helped me proofread anything. He hadn't even seen my final presentation. That's a lie, I whispered, my voice breaking. Noah never reviewed my work. He provided detailed emails showing your correspondence and requests for his help, Dr. Thompson continued. And he expressed deep regret at having to report his own sister. I felt the room spinning. This was a carefully orchestrated setup, but I couldn't prove it. Every defense I offered sounded like desperate excuses. The university moved with surprising speed. By that afternoon, I was notified of an academic misconduct hearing scheduled for the following day. No time to gather evidence or build a defense. No opportunity to properly investigate what had happened to my files. That evening, my parents arrived on campus, having been notified of the situation by Noah. Their performance was Oscar-worthy. How could you do something so foolish? My mother cried in my dorm room, loud enough for my roommate to hear through the thin walls. We raised you better than this. The pressure must have gotten to her, my father told Dr. Thompson during their private meeting. Madison has always been obsessed with achievement. We worried about her methods sometimes. By the time the hearing convened, the narrative was firmly established. I was a promising student who had cracked under pressure and resorted to plagiarism to maintain my stellar reputation. The academic integrity panel consisted of 3 professors and 2 student representatives. Evidence was presented methodically: my plagiarized presentation, my research notes containing similar unauthorized material, and the anonymous complaint with its detailed timeline. Then came the character witnesses, my own family, called to speak about their concerns regarding my academic habits. Madison has always been intensely competitive, my mother testified, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. When Noah began struggling academically in high school, she became even more determined. To outshine him, nothing was ever enough. My father described finding me in tears after receiving an A on a high school chemistry test. She said her future was ruined, over an A. We worried about this perfectionism, but never imagined it would lead to something like this. Noah's testimony was the final nail in my coffin. He described how I had sent him my presentation to review, how he had noticed similarities to articles he'd read while researching grad schools, and how I had dismissed his concerns. I didn't want to turn in my own sister, he said, voice cracking convincingly. But I couldn't be complicit in academic fraud. The integrity of research is too important. Through it all, I sat in stunned silence. Their lies were so seamlessly integrated with truths that I couldn't effectively counter them. Every defense I attempted was undermined by evidence my family had carefully planted. When the panel asked about previous academic misconduct, Noah produced evidence I'd never seen before. A high school essay with plagiarized passages he claimed I'd confessed to him about. My parents nodded solemnly, confirming they'd dealt with the situation privately to protect Madison's future. None of it was true, but all of it was believable. My academic record was too perfect, my achievements too numerous. The panel saw what my family wanted them to see, an overachiever who had finally crossed an ethical line. The verdict came swiftly: immediate expulsion from Princeton University, revocation of my scholarship, and a permanent mark on my academic record. The Oxford opportunity vanished instantly. Dr. Miller, who had initially defended me, now looked at me with profound disappointment. "I believed in you, Madison," he said quietly as I gathered my belongings. "That's what hurts the most." As I walked out of the hearing room, my entire future in ruins, I caught sight of my parents and Noah in the hallway. For just a moment, as no one else was looking, Noah's facade slipped. He smirked, a small, satisfied smile that confirmed everything. This had been deliberate. This had been planned. This had been their goal all along. I had never felt so utterly betrayed and alone. The day after my expulsion, I received an official letter. I had 48 hours to vacate university housing. My campus ID was deactivated, cutting off access to buildings, meal services, and even the library. 3 years of my life had been erased in a single day. Standing in my half-packed dorm room, I received a call from my father. "Your mother and I have discussed the situation," he said, his voice eerily calm. "We're willing to help you through this difficult time, under certain conditions." Those conditions revealed their true intentions. I would move back home, enroll in a local community college of their choosing, and work part-time at my mother's design firm. All my educational and financial decisions would require their approval. In essence, I would surrender the independence they had worked so methodically to destroy. "This is for your own good, Madison," my mother added, having clearly been listening on another extension. "You've proven you can't be trusted with important decisions." The audacity of their offer, presented as generosity when they had orchestrated my downfall, sparked something in me. Through tears of rage and despair, I found my voice. "I know what you did," I said, the words steady despite my shaking hands. "All 3 of you. This was planned, and I will never, ever live under your roof again." I hung up and blocked their numbers, my first act of defiance. With nowhere to go and limited savings, I packed my belongings into 2 suitcases and a backpack. My roommate, believing the plagiarism accusations, barely spoke to me. Former friends avoided eye contact in hallways. The community I'd built over 3 years disintegrated overnight. On my last morning at Princeton, I ran into Dr. Miller outside the science building. I expected anger or disappointment, but instead saw uncertainty in his eyes. "The evidence was compelling, Madison," he said quietly. "But something doesn't add up. Your work has always been meticulously original." A flicker of hope rose within. "Me?" "It wasn't me, Dr. Miller. I was set up. My family." He held up a hand, stopping me. "I can't get involved in family matters, but I want you to know that despite everything, I believe you have extraordinary potential. Don't let this define your entire future." His words were both comfort and torture, acknowledgement of my abilities coupled with acceptance of my disgrace. I left Princeton with no destination in mind. My first night away, I stayed in a cheap motel near Trenton, New Jersey, using the last of my meal plan refund money. I applied for jobs online until 3 a.m., desperate for anything that would keep me from homelessness. After 3 days of rejections, I secured a position as a night shift receptionist at a small airport hotel. The pay was minimal, but it came with a heavily discounted staff room, a tiny space in the basement level with no windows, but it was shelter. For weeks, I applied to other universities, hoping my stellar record before the plagiarism incident might convince someone to take a chance on me. Each rejection letter cited my expulsion for academic misconduct. Princeton's prestige once my greatest advantage, now made my disgrace more noteworthy. 2 months into my exile, Noah texted from a new number I hadn't blocked. Just checking in. Parents are worried. You're being dramatic. We only wanted what's best for you. Oxford would have been a mistake. I didn't respond, but the message confirmed what I already knew. My destruction had been deliberate, designed to bring me back under their control. The fact that they still believed I might return showed how little they understood me, or perhaps how successful they'd been at breaking me in the past. Financial hardship became my daily reality. My hotel job barely covered my reduced-rate room. And basic necessities. My credit card debt grew as I paid for essentials and job application fees. Without a college degree, my employment options were severely limited. I tried reaching out to former professors for research assistant positions, carefully explaining my situation without sounding paranoid. Most never replied. Those who did expressed regret, but couldn't risk their reputations by hiring someone expelled for plagiarism. 6 months after my expulsion, I hit a new low. The hotel was cutting staff, and I was among the first let go. With only 2 weeks severance and nowhere to go, I spent nights in my car, parked behind a 24-hour laundromat where I could use the bathroom and occasionally shower in a nearby gym, using a trial membership. During this time, I discovered something that nearly destroyed my remaining will to fight. While searching for job listings, I stumbled across an article in a scientific journal. Novel Approaches to Targeted Gene Therapy Delivery Systems by Robert Patterson, Noah Hayes, and Victoria Chen. The article detailed the very research I had been developing, my ideas, my methods, with just enough modifications to avoid direct plagiarism. My father had used his connections in academic publishing, Noah had contributed his surface-level understanding of my work, and Victoria had provided the scientific legitimacy. They had not only destroyed my academic career, but had stolen my intellectual property. While I was sleeping in my car, they were receiving recognition for my ideas. That night, sitting in my cold car with rain drumming on the roof, I contemplated giving up completely. What was the point of fighting when the system had so thoroughly failed me? When my own family had orchestrated my destruction for their benefit? I drafted a letter exposing everything, the setup, the theft of my research, the family conspiracy. But who would believe me? I was the disgraced student. They were respected academics and professionals. Without evidence, my accusations would sound like the bitter ramblings of a failed student unable to accept responsibility. The next morning, exhausted and hopeless, I was nursing a lukewarm coffee in a diner when someone slid into the booth across from me. "Madison Hayes? I've been looking for you." I looked up to see Professor Ellis, who had served on the academic integrity panel that expelled me. My first instinct was to leave, but curiosity kept me seated. "Why would you be looking for me?" I asked, voice hoarse from crying the night before. "Because things aren't adding up," she said quietly. "I've been reviewing your case. The evidence was compelling. Too compelling, actually. Too neat. Too comprehensive. For the first time in months, someone was seeing what I had been unable to prove. Dr. Miller has been raising questions too," she continued. "And then I saw the Patterson-Hayes-Chen paper. The methodological approach is remarkably similar to what you were developing, despite their claims of originality." "They stole my research," I whispered. "After they destroyed my reputation so no one would believe me." Professor Ellis didn't immediately dismiss my claim as paranoia, which alone felt like a miracle. "I can't officially reopen your case without new evidence," she said. "But I have a colleague at Mercer Biomedical Research who needs a lab assistant. No college degree required, just practical skills and discretion. It's not glamorous and doesn't pay much, but it would get you back into a laboratory environment." She slid a business card across the table. "Dr. Samantha Wright. Tell her I sent you. She doesn't care about academic politics, only capability." That small act of faith, a veteran professor believing in me despite official condemnation, became the turning point I desperately needed. For the first time since my expulsion, I felt a flicker of hope that my life wasn't permanently destroyed. As I left the diner clutching Dr. Wright's contact information, I didn't know it yet, but this moment marked the beginning of my journey, back from rock bottom. The path would be longer and harder than I could imagine, but at least now there was a path. The address on Professor Ellis's card led me to an inconspicuous building in an industrial area outside Trenton. Mercer Biomedical Research occupied the second floor, a modest facility compared to Princeton's gleaming laboratories, but equipped with functional research equipment. Dr. Samantha Wright was nothing like I expected. In her late 50s, with short gray hair and wearing jeans under her lab coat, she had a directness I found immediately refreshing. "Ellis says you were railroaded," she said after I introduced myself. "I don't care. What I care about is whether you can analyze genetic sequences, maintain precise experimental protocols, and work 80 hours a week for barely livable pay. I can do all of that," I said without hesitation. "Good. You start tomorrow. There's an efficiency apartment above the lab that comes with the job. Previous assistant left last month, so it's available if you need housing." The apartment was little, more than a studio with a kitchenette. But after sleeping in my car, it felt like luxury. That night, for the first time in months, I slept on a real bed, with a door I could lock and a sense of purpose to wake up to. Working for Dr. Wright was demanding but transformative. Mercer Biomedical operated on limited grant funding, conducting contract research for smaller pharmaceutical companies that couldn't afford in-house labs. The work was routine: testing drug interactions, running standardized experiments, documenting results. But it kept my scientific skills sharp. "You're overqualified," Dr. Wright commented after my first month. "Ellis mentioned you were working on targeted gene therapy delivery systems. Innovative stuff." I tensed, wondering if she'd seen the Patterson-Hayes-Chen paper. "I had some ideas," I said cautiously. "But that's in the past now." Dr. Wright studied me for a moment. "Nothing's ever truly in the past, Madison. Especially good ideas. They have a way of resurfacing when the time is right." Over the next 6 months, I rebuilt my life from scratch. I paid off my credit card debt, saved a small emergency fund, and even began taking online courses in computer science and data analytics, skills that would complement my scientific background without requiring academic credentials. Dr. Wright gave me increasing responsibility, eventually allowing me to design experimental protocols and analyze results independently. She never asked about Princeton or the plagiarism allegations, focusing instead on my present capabilities. One evening, working late, I found her reviewing the Patterson-Hayes-Chen paper. "Interesting approach," she said, not looking up, "but fundamentally flawed in the delivery mechanism. The lipid nanoparticle formulation they're proposing would be cleared by the immune system before reaching target tissues." She was right. It was precisely the problem I had been working to solve before my expulsion. My solution had involved a novel coding process that would disguise the nanoparticles from immune detection. "There's a way around that," I said tentatively. Dr. Wright glanced up. "Show me." That night, using the lab's basic equipment, I demonstrated the principles of my improved delivery system. Dr. Wright watched in silence, occasionally taking notes. "This is significantly more advanced than what's in this paper," she said finally, "and more likely to work." "It was my original research," I admitted. "They appropriated it." Dr. Wright's expression hardened. "I suspected as much. Ellis didn't give me details, but I can read between the lines." She tapped the journal thoughtfully. "You should develop this further, under a different application focus to avoid direct competition with their paper." "I can't publish," I reminded her. "My academic reputation is destroyed." "Publish under a pseudonym," she suggested. "Focus on practical applications rather than theoretical frameworks. There are industry journals that care more about results than academic credentials." That conversation sparked a new phase in my recovery. By day, I performed my regular lab duties. By night, I refined my research, adapting my delivery system for specific applications in treating rare genetic disorders. Dr. Wright introduced me to Dr. Michael Brennan, a former colleague who now worked in healthcare technology. He was developing medical applications, but struggling with the biological interface components. Your nanoparticle delivery system could be adapted for localized drug delivery via smartphone-controlled implants, he explained during our first meeting. The medical applications would be revolutionary, especially for conditions requiring precision timing of medication release. This collaboration opened an unexpected path. My biological expertise combined with Dr. Brennan's technical knowledge created something neither of us could have developed alone. A smartphone application that could monitor genetic markers via wearable sensors and calibrate treatment protocols accordingly. To protect my identity and avoid attention from my family, I worked under the pseudonym Madeline Harrison. Dr. Wright and Dr. Brennan respected my need for anonymity, though neither knew the full extent of my family's betrayal. After 18 months of development, our prototype health monitoring system attracted attention from a venture capital firm specializing in medical technology. Their initial investment allowed us to form a small company, Precision Health Solutions, with Dr. Brennan as CEO, Dr. Wright as Chief Scientific Officer, and me as lead research developer. For the first time since my expulsion, I felt professionally validated. My ideas were being recognized, not stolen. My work was making a difference, not becoming someone else's acclaim. As our company grew, so did my confidence. I rented a small but comfortable apartment in Philadelphia, bought professional clothing, and began carefully rebuilding my identity, not as Madison Hayes, disgraced student, but as Madeline Harrison, innovative biotech researcher. 2 years after my expulsion, Precision Health Solutions secured a major investment round of $15 million. Our app had shown promising results in clinical trials for diabetes management, and we were expanding into other chronic conditions. I was named Chief Innovation Officer, with a salary that finally reflected my contributions. During this period of professional growth, I also undertook a personal mission, uncovering the full extent of my family's conspiracy. Using my new financial resources, I hired a cybersecurity expert to analyze my old laptop, which I had kept in storage. There's definitive evidence of remote access during the period in question, the expert confirmed. Sophisticated enough to avoid casual detection, but not impossible to trace. The intrusions originated from 2 IP addresses, one registered to a Noah Hayes in Cornell University housing, another to Robert Hayes in Westchester County. I also engaged a private investigator to document interactions between my family and Victoria Chen. He uncovered a paper trail of emails, financial transactions, and meetings that painted a clear picture of conspiracy. Your brother transferred $5,000 to Victoria Chen 3 days after your expulsion, the investigator reported. And your father's firm began managing investments for the Chen family the following month. The connections are unmistakable. Armed with this evidence, I consulted an attorney specializing in academic misconduct cases. Her assessment was sobering. You have compelling evidence of sabotage and conspiracy, she acknowledged. But academic reinstatement cases are extraordinarily difficult, especially after this much time has passed. The university would fight vigorously to avoid admitting such a significant error in judgment. I decided to bide my time. Precision Health Solutions was growing rapidly, and each success strengthened my position. I was no longer desperate for vindication. I was building something more valuable than the career that had been stolen from me. 3 years after my expulsion, our company made headlines when our technology was featured in a major medical journal. The article praised our innovative approach to personalized medicine and highlighted the potential to revolutionize treatment for rare genetic disorders. 1 week after publication, I received an email from Dr. Miller. I saw the article on Precision Health's technology. The approach to nanoparticle delivery is remarkably similar to what you were developing at Princeton. I always wondered what happened to your research. Would you be willing to meet to discuss this remarkable coincidence? She. Email was addressed to Madeline Harrison, but it was clear he had made the connection. I agreed to meet him at a conference in Boston the following month. Our reunion was awkward but ultimately healing. Dr. Miller admitted he had harbored doubts about my guilt for years, but had lacked the evidence to challenge the university's decision. The Mao Patterson-Hayes-Chen paper raised red flags immediately, he told me. The methodological approach was clearly your work, but the execution lacked your precision. It's produced no significant follow-up research because the fundamental delivery problem remains unsolved, the problem you were on the verge of solving. I showed him our company's technology, explaining how I had adapted my original research into a practical application. His validation of my work, recognition that these were indeed my ideas, meant more than I could express. As we parted, Dr. Miller made an unexpected offer. If you ever want to clear your name officially, I would support a reinvestigation of your case. The evidence you've gathered, combined with your subsequent work, presents a compelling argument for academic sabotage. I thanked him but explained that my priorities had changed. My focus was building my company and developing technologies that helped people, not fighting old battles. What I didn't tell him was that I was waiting for the perfect moment, when my family would have no choice but to face what they had done. That moment was approaching faster than I anticipated. 4 years after my expulsion, Precision Health Solutions was valued at over $200 million. As Chief Innovation Officer and a significant shareholder, I had achieved financial success beyond anything I could have anticipated during those dark days living in my car. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, I received an email that sent a chill through me despite the years of preparation. Dear Madison, I hope this finds you well. Your father's investment firm has experienced significant losses, and we're facing difficult times. We've been trying to reach you for years. We're your family, and despite past disagreements, families should stand together in times of need. Please, contact us. Love, Mom. They had found me, and as I had always known they would, they had come crawling back when they needed something. The timing couldn't have been more perfect for the reckoning I had patiently awaited. I let my mother's email sit unanswered for 3 days, giving them time to wonder whether I'd received it or simply deleted it unread. Finally, I replied with clinical precision. I'm available to meet at my office in Philadelphia next Tuesday, at 10 a.m. The address is attached. Come alone, all 3 of you. This is not negotiable. My assistant, Leah, was briefed on their arrival. They're not family, I explained. They're former associates who may attempt to manipulate the situation. Don't leave them alone with any company materials, and record all interactions in the lobby. The morning of the meeting, I dressed deliberately, a tailored charcoal suit that projected authority, not a hint of the vulnerable student they had destroyed. I arranged my office strategically, 3 visitor chairs facing my desk, a digital screen on the wall, and a manila envelope placed prominently on my desk. At precisely 10:02 a.m., Leah announced their arrival. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and prepared to face the architects of my downfall. They entered cautiously, my father first, thinner than I remembered, and notably less confident. My mother followed, her practiced smile failing to hide her apprehension. Noah came last, his expression a mixture of resentment and calculation. Madison, my mother breathed, stepping forward with arms extended for an embrace. I remained seated. Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Hayes, Noah, please sit down. The formality stopped her cold. They exchanged glances and took their seats, suddenly unsure of the script they had undoubtedly rehearsed. You look well, my father began awkwardly. We've been so worried about you. Have you? I replied, my voice level. How interesting. Let's skip the pretense. You're here because you need something from me. What is it? My directness unbalanced them. After a moment's hesitation, my father cleared his throat. As your mother mentioned in her email, my investment firm has experienced significant Challenges. A major client lawsuit combined with market downturns has placed us in a difficult position. We might lose the house, my mother added dramatically. Everything we've worked for. And you believe this concerns me because I let the question hang in the air. Noah shifted impatiently. Look, we know you're doing well with your tech company. The business news has covered your success. We're talking about family here, Madison, despite whatever grievances you're holding on to. Grievances, I repeated, the word like acid on my tongue. I pressed a button on my desk, and the screen on the wall illuminated with a simple timeline. Let's discuss grievances, shall we? The timeline detailed every event from my Oxford acceptance through the plagiarism setup, my expulsion, and the publication of my stolen research. Each entry was accompanied by documented evidence, emails, access logs, financial transactions, and witness statements I had methodically collected over 4 years. This is absurd, my father sputtered, but his face had paled. Is it? I picked up a remote and clicked to the next screen. Here's the remote access log showing Noah's entry to my computer the night before my presentation. Here's the $5,000 transfer from Noah to Victoria Chen 3 days after my expulsion. Here's Dad's email to the journal editor fast-tracking the publication of research that wasn't yours to publish. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. Madison, whatever you think happened, what I know happened, I corrected. I have signed statements from Dr. Miller questioning the authenticity of the Patterson-Hayes-Chen paper. I have forensic analysis of my laptop showing precisely when and how the plagiarized content was inserted. I have Victoria Chen's recent deposition admitting her role in the scheme in exchange for immunity. This last claim was an exaggeration. Victoria hadn't actually provided a deposition. But the flash of panic across Noah's face confirmed it was an effective one. What do you want? My father asked, his voice hoarse. Money? Is that what this is about? I laughed, a short, incredulous sound. I'm worth considerably more than you are at this point, Mr. Hayes. What I want is accountability. I opened the manila envelope and removed 3 documents, sliding one to each of them. These are formal statements admitting your roles in the conspiracy to sabotage my academic career and steal my research. You will sign them, and they will be notarized today. Copies will go to Princeton University, the journal that published my stolen research, and into a secure location that will be automatically released to media outlets if any of you ever attempt to contact me again without explicit invitation. This is blackmail, Noah hissed. This is justice, I corrected. You destroyed my academic career. You stole years of my life. You watched me fall into homelessness and poverty, and you did it for control, for jealousy, for your own advancement. Now you'll acknowledge what you did. And if we refuse? My father challenged, though his bluster was clearly hollow. I smiled slightly. Then I'll proceed with the lawsuit my attorneys have prepared against all 3 of you, plus Victoria Chen and her father, for conspiracy, fraud, defamation, and intellectual property theft. The evidence will become public record. Your remaining clients will abandon your firm. Noah's business career will be over before it properly begins. And any financial problems you're experiencing now will seem trivial by comparison. The room fell silent as the reality of their situation sank in. You would do that to your own family? My mother whispered. You forfeited the right to call yourselves my family the day you decided to destroy my life, I replied evenly. I'm giving you an opportunity to make a private admission rather than face public humiliation. The choice is yours. My father was the first to reach for a pen, recognizing the inevitable. Noah resisted longer, his face contorted with the same entitled rage that had driven him to betray me in the first place. You think this makes you better than us? He spat as he finally signed. No, Noah. What makes me better is that I rebuilt my life through legitimate work and innovation, not by destroying others. I succeeded despite what you did. Not because of what I took from someone else. After they signed, a notary was called to witness the documents. Throughout the process, my parents attempted various emotional appeals. Reminiscences about my childhood, expressions of regret about how things turned out, suggestions that we could heal as a family. I remained unmoved. Once the documents were officially notarized, I had copies made for each of them. Princeton University will receive these tomorrow. I expect they'll contact you directly about the implications. The journal will retract the fraudulent paper. Whether they pursue further action against you is their decision. And what about us? Your family? My mother asked, clutching her purse with white knuckles. You made your choice years ago, I said simply. Now you'll live with the consequences, just as I had to. The difference is, you'll do it with your comfortable house and social connections, not sleeping in a car behind a laundromat. As security esco after they left, I sat alone in my office, experiencing not the satisfaction I had anticipated, but a quiet sense of closure. The confrontation hadn't been about revenge, it had been about truth, about ensuring that the narrative of my life wasn't written by those who had tried to destroy it. The following week, Princeton University contacted me regarding the new evidence. An internal investigation was launched, resulting in the official clearing of my academic record 6 months later. The journal published a retraction and apology for the Patterson-Hayes-Chen paper. I declined the university's offer to resume my studies. Instead, I established a scholarship fund for students facing unjust academic accusations, providing both financial support and legal resources to ensure due process. Dr. Miller and I co-authored a legitimate paper on my original research, properly, crediting my contributions and establishing the scientific record I had been denied years earlier. As for my family, I maintained the boundaries I had established. They attempted contact several times in the months following our confrontation, oscillating between anger, guilt-tripping, and pleading. Each message was met with silence. Eventually, they stopped trying. 3 years after our confrontation, I received word that my father's firm had declared bankruptcy. Noah had relocated to Seattle for a mid-level management position far below his ambitions. My mother had sold the Westchester house and moved to a condominium in Florida. I felt no joy at their downfall, nor any obligation to help. Their collapse hadn't been my doing. It had been the natural consequence of building success on deception and betrayal, rather than genuine achievement. My own journey continued to evolve. Precision Health Solutions expanded internationally, our technologies helping thousands of patients with genetic conditions. I established a foundation supporting educational opportunities for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, particularly those interested in biomedical research. The deepest lesson from my experience wasn't about revenge or even justice. It was the recognition that true strength comes not from destroying others or controlling circumstances, but from maintaining integrity even when everything is taken from you. Family isn't defined by biology or shared history. It's created through trust, support, and mutual respect. In the years since my expulsion, I had built a chosen family of colleagues, friends, and mentors who valued me for my contributions and character, not for what they could take or control. The betrayal that once defined my life had become merely one chapter in a much larger story, a painful but ultimately transformative experience that shaped but no longer limited me. Today, when I look back at that terrified girl sleeping in her car, I feel immense compassion for her pain, but also pride in her resilience. She didn't know it then, but her darkest moment was merely the beginning of a journey toward a life more authentic and meaningful than the one that had been stolen from her. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you rebuild yourself afterward? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey of resilience and redemption resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's most challenging moments. Remember, your worth isn't determined by those who try to break you, but by your courage to rebuild what's been shattered. Thank you for listening, and may you find strength in your own difficult chapters. Ted them from my office. My father turned back. We only wanted what was best for you, Madison. Oxford would have taken you away from us. No, I replied. You wanted what was best for yourselves. There's a difference.
I'm Valerie Sanders, 32, and I never thought my parents' luxury car showroom grand opening would end with me standing alone on the sidewalk, tears streaming down my face. All I wanted was to support my family, despite years of being the overlooked daughter. I never expected Mom to hand me a cleaning rag, or Dad to call security, or my sister Megan to laugh as they declared I was too cheap to belong. If you're watching this video and have ever felt like an outsider in your own family, drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button to join our community of survivors. Growing up in Detroit was supposed to be my American dream story. Instead, it became a lesson in never being enough. My parents, Robert and Diane Sanders, started a small car dealership when I was just 5 years old. It wasn't much back then, just a modest lot with a handful of used sedans and a tiny office that smelled like my dad's coffee and my mom's perfume. I used to love spinning on the office chair while Dad talked to customers, feeling like I was part of something special. That feeling didn't last long. As the business grew, so did my mother's obsession with appearances. Our modest home was upgraded to a larger one in a better neighborhood. My school clothes became brand-specific. Every decision was filtered through the lens of, what will people think? My father, meanwhile, transformed into a workaholic who measured life's value in sales figures and profit margins. Dinner conversations revolved around business strategy rather than, how was your day? Then there was my sister Megan. 3 years younger than me, she somehow became the golden child almost from birth. Where I was reserved and creative, Megan was outgoing and practical. She could charm my father's business associates while I stood awkwardly in corners at company events. She understood profit margins at 10 years old while I was sketching designs for my dream bedroom. My 12th birthday crystallized everything wrong with our family dynamic. I'd been promised a special celebration, just our family at my favorite Italian restaurant. I'd talked about it for weeks, even picked out my outfit. The morning of my birthday, I came downstairs to find my parents huddled around Megan at the kitchen table, cooing over a certificate. She'd won a school mathematics award. By dinner time, my birthday had morphed into a celebration of Megan's achievement. The restaurant reservation was changed to accommodate my father's business partner who wanted to congratulate the math prodigy. My birthday cake had "Congratulations Sanders Family" written on it. I blew out candles while everyone toasted to Megan's bright future. As we grew older, the divide between us deepened. I discovered a passion for interior design during high school, transforming my bedroom with salvaged furniture and creative paint techniques on a shoestring budget. My mother called it playing house, while my father dismissed it as arts and crafts. When I announced my intention to study interior design in college, my father's response was immediate. We're not paying for a useless degree. Meanwhile, Megan was being groomed to follow in our father's footsteps. When she declared her intention to study business administration, our parents beamed with pride. College brochures for prestigious business schools appeared on our kitchen table. My father started introducing her as the future of Sanders Motors at business functions. I applied for every scholarship I could find and won a full ride to the Detroit Institute of Design. While Megan moved into a luxury apartment near her business school, fully funded by our parents, I worked 3 jobs to afford a tiny studio apartment with unreliable heating. During holiday breaks, I'd come home to find my bedroom converted into a proper guest room because Megan needs a home office space when she visits. Those early college years were brutal. I'd work morning shifts at a coffee shop, afternoon shifts at a fabric store, and weekends at a furniture outlet. Between jobs, I'd attend classes and stay up late completing design projects. Meanwhile, my parents continued their running commentary on my life choices. Such a shame you're wasting your potential, my mother would sigh during our increasingly rare phone calls. Megan's made the dean's list again, my father would add, as if I hadn't asked about their lives, not my sister's academic achievements. Holiday dinners became exercises in endurance. "Still playing with fabric swatches?" my father would ask, deliberately undermining my coursework. "Have you considered a business degree to fall back on?" my mother would suggest, as if design was just a phase I needed to outgrow. Megan would sit silently during these exchanges, occasionally offering a sympathetic glance that somehow made everything worse. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving of my senior year. I'd just secured an internship with a respected design firm, beating out dozens of applicants. When I shared the news, my father glanced up from his phone long enough to say, "That's nice. Maybe someday it'll turn into a real job instead of playing with fabric swatches." Something inside me finally snapped. I placed my napkin on the table, thanked my mother for dinner, and walked out. I spent the night in a motel and drove back to my apartment the next morning. After graduation, I reduced contact to minimal holidays and occasional phone calls. I built a surrogate family of close friends who actually celebrated my successes and supported me through failures. My small design business struggled initially, but each client led to referrals. I specialized in sustainable luxury, transforming spaces with carefully curated pieces that told stories. My tiny apartment in a less desirable neighborhood became my laboratory for design concepts. The emotional toll of family rejection isn't something you can simply shake off. I started therapy, initially just to process the anger I carried. Those sessions revealed patterns of emotional neglect that stretched back to early childhood. I wasn't broken or defective. I was responding normally to abnormal treatment. Understanding this intellectually helped, though the emotional wounds remained tender. When clients asked about my family background, I developed a generic response about growing up in Detroit with parents in the automotive industry. It was easier than explaining that my family had effectively discarded me for not fitting their mold. Friends became my safety net, especially my college roommate Julia, who understood family dysfunction all too well. We spent holidays together creating new traditions that didn't leave us feeling hollow. By my late 20s, I'd established enough of a reputation to be invited to regional design conferences. My business was stable, if not wildly successful. I'd moved to a better apartment and even hired an assistant. I wasn't rich by any means, but I was making it on my own terms. The relationship with my family remained distant but cordial. We'd exchange birthday and Christmas cards, occasionally meet for brief, stilted dinners when I visited Detroit. It wasn't healing, but it was survivable. The Midwest Sustainable Design Conference wasn't exactly where I expected to meet the love of my life. I was presenting a small workshop on eco-friendly materials when I noticed him in the back row, tall with thoughtful eyes, taking actual notes while everyone else was on their phones. Alexander Jensen wore a well-made but not flashy suit and a simple watch that I'd later learn cost more than my car. Nothing about him screamed billionaire real estate developer, which was precisely how he preferred it. After my presentation, he approached with intelligent questions about sustainable sourcing. "I'm developing properties that need to last generations, not just until the next trend," he explained. There was something refreshing about his practical approach to luxury. When he suggested coffee to continue our conversation, I agreed without hesitation. Coffee turned into dinner, and by dessert, I realized we'd been talking for nearly 5 hours. Alexander listened. Really listened. He asked about my design philosophy, my challenges with sourcing materials, my long-term vision. Not once did he check his phone or scan the room for more important people to talk to. When I mentioned my family's dismissal of my career, he seemed genuinely confused. "But what you do adds beauty and function to people's daily lives," he said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Our early dating period was filled with surprises. Alexander picked me up for our second date in a modest sedan, not the luxury vehicle I might have expected from a successful businessman. His apartment, while in a good neighborhood, was practical rather than ostentatious. "I spend most of my time at construction sites or in meetings," he explained. "This is just where I sleep." Gradually, I learned more about his business. Alexander had built Jensen Global Development from the ground up, specializing in sustainable luxury developments across 3 continents. He employed thousands, had revolutionized green building practices in commercial real estate, and was regularly featured in business magazines. Yet he carried his success lightly, more interested in solving problems than collecting status symbols. The first time I visited his actual home, I nearly turned around at the gate. The sprawling estate was tasteful but undeniably impressive, with carefully manicured grounds and a modern architectural design that blended perfectly with the natural landscape. "I should have warned you," he said, noticing my wide eyes. "This is where I entertain clients and host charity events. The apartment is where I go to feel normal." I'll never forget the moment I discovered his true net worth. We were having breakfast when his assistant called about a minor acquisition issue. Alexander calmly authorized the purchase of a $200 million property while stirring his oatmeal. When he hung up, he continued our conversation about weekend plans as if nothing had happened. Later that night, I Googled him and sat stunned at the Forbes estimate of his wealth. "Does it bother you?" he asked when I brought it up, genuine concern in his eyes. "Not the money," I replied honestly. "Just wondering why someone like you would be interested in someone like me." His answer was immediate: "Because you see beauty where others see empty space. Because you create harmony and balance wherever you go. Because when you talk about your work, your whole face lights up." He took my hand across the table. "Money is just a tool, Valerie. It doesn't define me any more than your family's opinion defines you." Our relationship developed around mutual respect. Alexander encouraged my business growth, sometimes connecting me with clients, but never in a way that felt like charity. We collaborated on a community center project, blending his structural expertise with my interior vision. Weekends were spent exploring art galleries, hiking trails, or simply reading in comfortable silence at his home. He fit seamlessly into my friend group, bringing wine to Julia's dinner parties and engaging my assistant in genuine conversation at office events. After 18 months together, Alexander proposed during a normal Tuesday evening. No grand gestures or public spectacles, just the two of us cooking dinner in his kitchen. "I don't want to spend another day without knowing you'll be my partner in everything," he said, presenting a ring that balanced elegance with my practical nature. "Will you marry me, Valerie?" We planned a small wedding at a historic greenhouse garden. My parents and Megan attended, maintaining appropriate expressions throughout the ceremony. My mother whispered that my dress was surprisingly tasteful, as if she'd expected me to walk down the aisle in burlap. My father shook Alexander's hand with newfound respect after learning exactly what Jensen Global Development entailed. Megan cornered me at the reception to suggest I'd certainly married up, as if Alexander's wealth was the only thing of value I brought to the relationship. Our honeymoon in Japan was a perfect blend of Alexander's business connections and my design inspirations. We visited ancient temples and modern architectural marvels, meeting with craftspeople whose techniques had been passed down for generations. Alexander arranged private tours of spaces normally closed to visitors, his respect for tradition opening doors throughout our journey. Moving into our home together marked another milestone. Despite Alexander's insistence that everything he had was now mine as well, I maintained my design business and contributed to our household expenses. "Your independence is part of who you are," he said when I explained my need to pay my own way. "I would never ask you to give that up." We settled into a rhythm of shared meals, separate workdays, and evenings spent discussing our projects and passions. Throughout those early years of marriage, we established clear boundaries with my family. Alexander understood my complicated feelings toward them, never pushing for reconciliation, but supporting whatever level of contact I felt comfortable maintaining. When we did see them, he was unfailingly polite but protective, steering conversations away from sensitive topics and creating graceful exits when tension mounted. "Family is important," he told me after one particularly strained dinner, "but not at the expense of your well-being." After nearly 5 years of marriage, the text message from my mother caught me completely off guard. "Sanders Motors expanding to luxury market. Grand opening of Rolls-Royce and Bentley showroom next month. Your presence requested. No pleasantries, no personal questions about my life. Just a business announcement with an implied obligation. The follow-up phone call from my father wasn't much warmer. This is a major milestone for the company, he explained, his voice carrying that familiar tone of restrained excitement he reserved for business victories. We'll have important clients attending, industry representatives, local celebrities. The whole family should be there to represent the Sanders brand. I sat at my design studio desk, staring at the formal invitation that had arrived by courier. Heavy cream cardstock with embossed gold lettering announced the grand opening of Sanders Luxury Motors with all the subtlety of a peacock display. The RSVP card requested confirmation of attendance and the number of guests. Do you want to go? Alexander asked that evening, his expression carefully neutral as he reviewed the invitation. We were having dinner on our terrace, the spring evening unusually warm for Michigan. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe this is an olive branch. Another part remembers every dismissive comment and backhanded compliment. Alexander set down his fork. I think you need to decide what you want from this relationship going forward. If reconciliation is your goal, this might be a step toward that. If you're comfortable with the current distance, that's valid too. The decision became more complicated when Alexander revealed a scheduling conflict. I have to be in Singapore that week, he explained, genuine regret in his voice. The Riverside development is at a critical stage, and the government officials will only meet with me personally. I could wait until you're back, I suggested, relief and disappointment battling within me. I can reschedule if you want me there, he offered immediately. This is important. We talked for hours that night, weighing the potential for genuine family connection against the history of disappointment. Maybe they've changed, I said, not entirely convinced. Dad's business has grown substantially. Maybe they're in a different place emotionally too. Just remember that their growth isn't your responsibility, Alexander reminded me gently. You can open the door without stepping all the way through. I decided to attend alone. The week before the event, anxiety turned my stomach into knots. I spent hours choosing the right outfit, finally settling on a navy blue dress that walked the line between elegant and understated. I would drive my own car, a modest luxury sedan that Alexander had insisted on for safety reasons, but that wouldn't scream wealth. After careful consideration, I decided not to wear my wedding or engagement rings, both valuable pieces that might draw unwanted attention or comments. The day before the event, I scheduled a hair and makeup appointment, needing the confidence boost. My stylist noticed my tension. Big meeting with difficult clients, she asked as she curled my hair. Family event, I replied, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Same difference. That night, I had a full-blown panic attack, sitting on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m. while Alexander tried to calm me down via video call from his hotel in Singapore. You don't have to go, he reminded me. There's no obligation here. I know, I managed between calming breaths. But I need to do this for me, to show myself that they don't have power over me anymore. The morning of the showroom opening dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully, applied my makeup with precision, and gave myself a final check in the mirror. Professional, polished, but not trying too hard. I called Alexander before leaving the house. How are you feeling? He asked, his face tired from late meetings, but his attention fully on me. Like I'm driving to a job interview I don't actually want, I admitted with a small laugh. You look beautiful, he said. And remember, you can leave anytime. Just text me and I'll call with an emergency. The drive to the showroom gave me too much time to think. Memories surfaced of previous family disappointments. My high school graduation where my parents left early for a business dinner. The design award ceremony they promised to attend, but canceled last minute because something came up with Megan. The Christmas I spent alone because my flight was delayed and no one bothered to wait for me before starting the family celebration. 3 times I nearly turned around. At one particularly long red light, I seriously contemplated calling the whole thing off. But something propelled me forward, perhaps the need for closure or the stubborn hope that people can change. The showroom was located in Detroit's most exclusive shopping district, the renovated building gleaming with glass and chrome. The parking lot was filled with luxury vehicles, a red carpet leading to the entrance where professionally dressed staff checked invitations. Taking a deep breath, I turned off the engine and gave myself one final pep talk. You are successful. You are loved. You are enough, I whispered to my reflection in the rearview mirror. And no matter what happens in there, you're driving home to a life you've built on your own terms. The showroom interior was a testament to opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast flattering light over gleaming vehicles arranged like sculptures throughout the space. A string quartet played in one corner, barely audible over the murmur of Detroit's elite exchanging pleasantries and business cards. The air smelled of expensive perfume, leather, and ambition. At the entrance, a young man in a tailored suit stopped me. Invitation, please? His practiced smile didn't quite reach his eyes as he scanned the guest list. Valerie Sanders, I said, presenting the cream cardstock invitation. The owner's daughter. His expression shifted immediately. Oh, Miss Sanders. Your mother mentioned you might be attending. Please, go right in. I spotted my mother across the room, resplendent in a designer dress that probably cost more than my first car. She was laughing with a group of women whose jewelry could finance a small nation. When she saw me approaching, her smile froze momentarily before reassembling itself into something polite but distant. You made it, she said, air kissing near my cheek to avoid disturbing her makeup. Her eyes performed a quick assessment of my outfit, lingering briefly on my sensible heels. You look appropriate. Let me introduce you to the wives of your father's investors. Not this is my daughter Valerie or my daughter the successful designer. Just you, as if my identity was an afterthought. The introductions were equally impersonal. This is my daughter, she said to the group, not bothering with my name or any details about my life. The next hour passed in a blur of discomfort. My father acknowledged my presence with a brief handshake, his eyes constantly scanning the room for more important guests. Glad you could make it, he said distractedly. The governor might stop by later. Been working on that connection for months. Megan arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in a designer outfit that screamed new money. Her jewelry caught the light with every practiced gesture, diamonds flashing like warning signals. When the family gathered for photos, my mother positioned me at the edge of the frame, a barely included afterthought. Stand over here, Valerie, she directed, physically moving me away from the center. The lighting is better for the main family. The main family? As if I were some distant cousin twice removed. I overheard my mother telling a guest, my younger daughter runs our business operations. The older one works in decorating or something. The dismissive wave of her hand reduced my career to a hobby, my passion to an afterthought. When servers circulated with champagne trays, they somehow never made it to my corner of the room. Eventually, I walked to the bar and got my own glass, earning a disapproving glance from my mother across the room. Megan cornered me by a display of engine components, champagne glass dangling from manicured fingers. You look better than I expected, she said, her tone suggesting minimal effort on my part could achieve miracles. That dress must have been a splurge for you. I sipped my champagne, determined to remain civil. It's nice to see you too, Megan. The showroom looks impressive. Daddy spared no expense, she replied, emphasizing their connection. This is just the beginning. We're expanding to 3 more locations next year. She paused, eyes narrowing slightly. So where's this mysterious husband no one ever sees? Too busy with his development empire. Her air quotes around the words made her skepticism clear. Alexander's in Singapore this week. Government meetings about a new project. She laughed, the sound brittle as thin ice. Right. Government meetings. Is that what he tells you when he's off doing whatever it is he actually does? She leaned closer, perfume clouding around us. You know you can drop the act with me, Val. We both know you've always had an active imagination. Remember your fashion design business in high school that was really just sewing patches on jeans? Before I could respond, she gasped dramatically as her champagne splashed onto my dress. Oh! How clumsy of me, she exclaimed, making no move to help as the liquid soaked into the navy fabric. You should probably clean that up before Mom sees. You know how she is about appearances. In the restroom, I dabbed at the stain with damp paper towels, fighting back tears of frustration. The door swung open, revealing one of my mother's friends who barely acknowledged my presence as she reapplied her lipstick. Such a lovely event your family has put together, she commented vaguely in my direction. Your sister seems so capable. Following in your father's footsteps, I understand. I nodded politely, not trusting my voice. When she left, I called Alexander, needing to hear a supportive voice. How's it going? He asked, concern evident despite the poor connection. About as expected, I replied, trying to keep my voice light. Megan accidentally spilled champagne on me, Mom's pretending I'm a distant acquaintance, and Dad's too busy networking to notice I exist. I'm sorry I'm not there, Alexander said. But I have some news that might help. My meeting's wrapped up early. I've already arranged the flight. I should land in Detroit around 8 p.m. your time. Hope fluttered in my chest. Really? You'd do that? Of course. I'll come straight to the event if you want me to. I checked my watch. The showroom opening was scheduled until 10 p.m. with a VIP after party to follow. Yes, please. If you're not too tired from the flight. Never too tired for you, he promised. I'll let you know when I land. Bolstered by the knowledge that Alexander was on his way, I returned to the main showroom. My family had gathered near the central display where a Rolls-Royce Phantom gleamed under carefully positioned spotlights. My father was speaking animatedly to a group of well-dressed men, Megan at his side nodding at appropriate intervals. My mother hovered nearby, adding gracious smiles to the conversation. I approached cautiously, hoping to join the family presentation. As I neared the group, my father's eyes flicked toward me momentarily before he subtly shifted his position, effectively blocking me from the circle. My mother noticed my approach and discreetly shook her head, mouthing, "Not now, this is business." Rebuffed yet again, I found a corner spot where I could observe without being in the way. I texted Alexander, "Counting the minutes until you're here. Being invisible is exhausting." His response was immediate. "You're the most visible person in my world. Boarding now. See you soon." Despite the discomfort, I decided to stay. Alexander was coming, and something inside me wanted him to see firsthand the family dynamic I'd described over the years. Maybe then the lingering doubt, the whisper that perhaps I was exaggerating or too sensitive, would finally be silenced. The evening progressed to its next phase as my father gathered the most important guests for an exclusive tour of the service area and private showroom. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll follow me, I'd like to show our premier clients the true Sanders luxury motors experience, he announced, gesturing grandly. As the select group assembled, my father placed his arm around Megan's shoulders. My daughter Megan, the future of Sanders Luxury Motors, will co-host this tour. She's been instrumental in developing our customer experience protocols. I followed at a distance, not explicitly invited but not forbidden either. My father noticed my presence, his eyes narrowing slightly before he returned his attention to his VIP guests. My mother maneuvered herself between me and a particularly influential couple, effectively preventing me from joining their conversation. The private showroom was even more opulent than the main floor, with rare vehicle models displayed on rotating platforms. The lighting shifted colors subtly, highlighting different features of each automobile. A bar had been set up in one corner, staffed by bow-tied bartenders, mixing signature cocktails named after luxury car models. My father positioned himself at the center of the room, Megan still at his side like a carefully groomed accessory. What you're seeing today is the culmination of a 20-year vision, he began, voice carrying the practiced cadence of a seasoned salesman. Sanders Motors began as a family business, and we remain a family business today. The difference is scale and vision. He gestured around the room, his expression proud. This showroom represents the legacy we're building, a legacy that will continue through generations of Sanders to come. His eyes rested meaningfully on Megan, who beamed under the attention. An older gentleman in an impeccably tailored suit spoke up. "Robert, I believe you have another daughter as well?" He glanced around the room, eventually spotting me at the periphery. "Is she also involved in the business?" My mother intervened before my father could respond. "Oh, she's just visiting," she said smoothly, as if I were a distant relative passing through town rather than her firstborn child. I stepped forward, determined to introduce myself properly, but Megan intercepted smoothly. "Dad, shouldn't we show everyone the custom ordering suite? I think Mr. Harrington would be particularly interested in the leather options for the Bentley Continental." The moment passed, my presence once again rendered irrelevant. The tour continued through various sections of the facility, each more exclusive than the last. I maintained my position at the edge of the group, increasingly aware of my precarious status as neither guest nor host. During a champagne toast celebrating the partnership with Rolls-Royce, my mother suddenly appeared at my side, her smile fixed, but her eyes cold. She pressed something into my hand, and I looked down to find a microfiber cleaning cloth. "Make yourself useful," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the ambient music. "Some of the display vehicles need polishing. Fingerprints on the black paint." I stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to clean cars? At your grand opening?" "You're just standing around anyway," she hissed. "At least this way you'd be contributing something." Her eyes flicked over my dress. "Besides, you've already got a stain. It's not like you can make that outfit any worse." I felt heat rising to my face. "I'm not your staff, Mom. I'm your daughter. I came to support you and Dad, not to be the help. You're embarrassing us by hovering like staff, but not actually doing anything," she snapped, voice rising slightly. "Either make yourself presentable and sociable with the right people, or make yourself useful behind the scenes. Those are your options." My father noticed our exchange and strode over, professional smile dropping as he approached. "What's the problem now?" he demanded, keeping his voice low but intense. "Nothing, Robert," my mother replied. "Just suggesting Valerie might be more comfortable helping the detail team, since she's not really mingling." "I didn't come here to be your janitor," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I came because you invited me. As family." Megan approached, sighing theatrically for the benefit of nearby guests. "Is she making a scene again?" she asked no one in particular, rolling her eyes. "Something's never change." My father's jaw tightened. "Valerie, we're in the middle of the most important business event of our careers. Whatever issue you're having right now needs to wait." "The issue I'm having," I said, no longer bothering to whisper, "is being treated like an unwelcome stranger by my own family." "You're the one who chose to distance yourself," my father countered. "You've never supported this business or shown any interest in our success. And now you show up, underdressed, unconnected, trying to, what? Ruin our big night out of spite." "I came because you invited me," I repeated, the cleaning cloth still clutched in my hand. "Because despite everything, you're still my family." Megan scoffed loudly. "She's clearly too cheap to belong in a place like this. Look at her. No jewelry, boring shoes, department store dress." She turned to our mother. "I told you inviting her was a mistake. She doesn't fit our brand image." "She's always been the odd one out," my mother agreed, as if I weren't standing right there. "But family obligations, you know how it is." She directed this comment to a nearby guest who was pretending not to listen. My father's patience visibly snapped. "If you can't support this family properly, you should leave," he said flatly. With a subtle nod, he summoned a security guard who had been stationed near the entrance. "Please escort my daughter out. She's not feeling well." The security guard, a young man who looked deeply uncomfortable with the situation, approached hesitantly. "Ma'am, if you'll come with me, please." In that moment, surrounded by luxury and wealth, I had never felt more worthless. The security guard kept a respectful distance as he guided me toward the exit, his discomfort evident in his averted eyes. "I'm sorry about this, ma'am," he murmured. "Just doing my job." "I understand," I replied, maintaining as much dignity as possible while being escorted out of my own family's event. "Can I get my purse first? It's on the side table near the main display." Before he could respond, Megan appeared with exaggerated concern on her face. "I'll take care of her things," she assured the guard. "Best if this is handled quickly and quietly." The message was clear: get me out fast, minimize the disruption. Guests pretended not to stare as I was led toward the door, their conversations growing hushed, then resuming with increased animation once I passed. My father's voice carried across the showroom: "Family problems, nothing to worry about." Now, about those import tariffs on luxury vehicles. I stumbled slightly as I exited the building, emotion finally overwhelming my composure. Tears flowed freely down my cheeks as I stood alone on the sidewalk, the evening air cool against my flushed skin. Without my purse, I couldn't even leave. My car keys, phone, and wallet were all inside. Fortunately, I'd slipped my phone into my dress pocket after texting Alexander earlier. With trembling fingers, I called him. "I'm at the airport," he answered immediately. "Just landed." "What's happening?" "They kicked me out." I managed between quiet sobs. "Security escorted me out. My own father had me removed like some disruptive stranger." "What?" The shock in his voice mirrored my own disbelief. "Where are you now?" "Outside the showroom." "They wouldn't let me get my purse." "My keys are inside." His response was immediate and calm. "I'm getting in the car now. Don't go anywhere. I'll be there in 20 minutes, traffic permitting." "Okay," I whispered, suddenly exhausted by the evening's emotional toll. "Valerie," Alexander's voice softened. "I love you. And I'm so sorry this happened. Stay strong for just a little longer." After hanging up, I moved to a decorative bench near the entrance, trying to compose myself. I wiped away tears, straightened my dress, and took deep breaths until my breathing steadied. An odd calm settled over me, perhaps the peaceful clarity that comes after a storm. My family had shown me exactly who they were and how they valued me. The pretense was finally over. 15 minutes later, I heard it before I saw it, the distinctive purr of a powerful engine, smoother than standard luxury vehicles. A gleaming black Rolls-Royce Phantom turned into the driveway, its polished surface reflecting the showroom lights like a moving mirror. The very same model that had been on center display inside was now rolling toward the entrance. Inside the showroom, I could see guests turning toward the windows, conversation pausing as attention shifted to the new arrival. The Rolls-Royce came to a perfect stop directly in front of the entrance, its presence commanding immediate respect. A uniformed driver emerged and walked around to open the passenger door. Alexander stepped out, immaculate in a bespoke suit despite having just completed a 17-hour flight. His eyes scanned the entrance until he spotted me, and his expression softened immediately. He walked directly to me, ignoring the stares from inside the showroom, and took my hands in his. "Are you okay?" he asked, searching my face with genuine concern. "I am now," I said, meaning it completely. He pulled me into a gentle embrace, mindful of my stained dress, and whispered, "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner." "You're here now," I replied, drawing strength from his presence. "That's what matters." After a moment, Alexander stepped back and looked toward the showroom entrance. "I think we should retrieve your purse, don't you?" I nodded, straightening my shoulders. "Yes, let's do that." We walked arm in arm back into the showroom, his presence beside me like armor. A hush fell over the nearest guests as we entered, rippling outward until the entire space grew quiet except for the background music. My father stood frozen near the central display, champagne glass halted midway to his lips. My mother's practiced smile faltered as she registered Alexander's presence, her eyes darting between us in confusion. Megan's expression shifted from shock to calculation in the space of a heartbeat. My father recovered first, setting down his glass and striding forward with an outstretched hand. "Welcome. You must be." His voice faltered as recognition dawned. "Alexander Jensen?" "Yes," Alexander replied coolly. "CEO of Jensen Global Development. And Valerie's husband." My mother materialized at my father's side, her smile now dazzling. "Mr. Jensen, what a wonderful surprise. We weren't expecting you tonight. Welcome to Sanders Luxury Motors." "I understand my wife was asked to leave," Alexander said, his tone pleasant but firm. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding." "A terrible misunderstanding," my mother agreed quickly. "Family communication, you know how it can be. Please, join our VIP group. We were just discussing expansion opportunities." Alexander's hand remained firmly at the small of my back. "Actually, we're just here for Valerie's purse. She mentioned it was left inside." Megan stepped forward, suddenly eager to be helpful. "I have it right here. I was keeping it safe." She presented my handbag with a flourish, her eyes never leaving Alexander's face. "So nice to finally meet my brother-in-law. Valerie tells us so little about your work. We should really get together sometime to discuss potential business synergies." Alexander accepted the purse with a polite nod. "Thank you." He handed it to me before turning back to my family. "Your showroom is impressive. We've actually been looking at expanding our company fleet. Currently, we maintain about 30 luxury vehicles for executive transport." My father's eyes widened. 30? Well, we would certainly be interested in discussing fleet options. I could set up a meeting for next week. "That won't be necessary," Alexander replied smoothly. "We already have appointments with several other dealerships tomorrow. But thank you for the offer." I checked my purse, confirming all contents were present. "I think we have everything we need," I said, looking up at Alexander. My mother made one last attempt. "This has all been a misunderstanding, darling. Why don't you and Alexander stay? The night is young, and we have so much to catch up on." "I think we're done here," I replied, my voice calm and clear in the hushed showroom. As we turned to leave, my father pressed his business card into Alexander's hand. "If you reconsider about the fleet vehicles, my direct line is on there." Alexander pocketed the card with a noncommittal smile, his other hand never leaving the small of my back as we walked toward the exit. Megan hurried after us. "Let me give you my card too. I handle our corporate accounts personally." She fumbled in her clutch, producing a glossy business card embossed with the Sanders Luxury Motors logo. "Thank you," Alexander said politely, accepting the card without slowing our exit. My mother called after us. We should have dinner soon. "Call me Valerie." We walked out with dignity, neither rushing nor lingering, the perfect picture of composure. The uniformed driver opened the doors of the Rolls-Royce, and we slipped into the sumptuous leather interior. Only when the privacy screen raised and the vehicle pulled away did I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. The moment the privacy screen was fully raised and we were safely moving away from the showroom, I collapsed against Alexander's shoulder, emotions finally breaking through my composed exterior. He held me tightly as sobs racked my body, years of accumulated hurt pouring out in a torrent. "I'm sorry," I gasped between tears. "Your suit." "Don't apologize," he murmured, stroking my hair. "Not for this. Not ever for this." When I finally calmed enough to speak coherently, I saw the anger simmering beneath Alexander's carefully controlled expression. "I should have been there," he said, voice tight. "The way they treated you." "You saw enough," I replied, wiping my eyes with the handkerchief he offered. "Now you understand what I've been trying to explain all these years." "I believed you before," he assured me, "but seeing it firsthand." He shook his head, jaw clenched. "No one deserves that treatment, especially not from family." I looked out the window at the passing city lights, feeling strangely hollow and full simultaneously. The worst part is that even knowing how they are, part of me still hoped for something different. How pathetic is that? Alexander turned my face gently toward his. Hope isn't pathetic, Valerie. It's human. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of how you handled yourself in there. Many people would have screamed or made a scene. You were dignified and strong. I don't feel strong, I admitted. That's the thing about strength, he said quietly. It's most evident when we feel weakest. Instead of returning home immediately, Alexander directed the driver to our favorite restaurant, a small French bistro tucked away from the main dining districts. The owner, Marcel, welcomed us personally despite the late hour, settling us in a private corner booth. I know you probably don't feel like celebrating, Alexander said as Marcel brought champagne without being asked. But I refuse to let your family ruin our evening completely. Over a quiet meal, we discussed what had happened, processing the events together. They're never going to change, I realized aloud, the truth finally settling in my heart. All these years, I've been waiting for some recognition, some sign that they see me. But they don't want to see me. They want to see the version of me that fits their narrative. And that's their loss, Alexander said firmly. The real you is extraordinary. The weeks following the showroom incident brought a barrage of communication from my family. My father left voicemails about exciting business opportunities and misunderstandings that shouldn't interfere with potential partnerships. My mother sent text messages about family unity and moving past disagreements. Megan suddenly developed an interest in catching up, sister to sister, her messages transparently focused on establishing connection with Alexander. I ignored them all, focusing instead on self-care and emotional processing. I immersed myself in design projects, finding solace in creating beautiful, functional spaces for clients who genuinely appreciated my work. Alexander, true to his nature, neither pushed me toward reconciliation nor encouraged complete estrangement. This is your journey, he said. I'm just here to support whatever you decide. 3 weeks after the incident, we retreated to our lake house for a long weekend, needing space from daily pressures. Sitting on the dock at sunset, feet dangling in cool water, I finally felt clarity emerging from the emotional fog. I think I need to meet with them, I said, watching ripples spread across the lake's surface. Not for reconciliation, but for closure. To say the things I've never said. Alexander nodded, understanding without words. When you're ready, I'll be there. No, I replied after consideration. I appreciate that, but I need to do this myself. You being there would change the dynamic. They'd focus on impressing you rather than hearing me. He squeezed my hand. Whatever you need. Just remember you're not obligated to maintain relationships that harm you, even with family. The following week, I scheduled a meeting at a neutral restaurant, halfway between our home and my parents' house. They arrived together, Megan included, looking uncomfortable outside their natural habitat of luxury and control. Thank you for meeting us, my mother began, her social smile firmly in place. We've been so worried. Have you? I asked quietly. Because your messages have been exclusively about business opportunities and social appearances. Not once has anyone asked if I'm okay after being publicly humiliated and escorted out by security. My father shifted uncomfortably. That was unfortunate. The situation escalated quickly. The situation, I repeated. You mean when you chose to treat your daughter like an unwelcome intruder rather than family? You've always been so sensitive, my mother said dismissively. We were under tremendous pressure that night. Surely you understand the importance of appearances in business settings. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I understand appearances have always mattered more to you than my feelings. I understand that Megan has always been the daughter you wanted, and I've been the disappointment you tolerate when convenient. That's not fair, my father protested weakly. Isn't it? I challenged. When have you ever attended my design showcases? When have you ever asked about my business with genuine interest? When have you ever introduced me with the same pride you show when introducing Megan? Silence fell over the table, heavy with unspoken truths. I didn't come here to rehash old hurts, I continued after a moment. I came to establish boundaries going forward. I don't want to cut you out of my life completely, but I won't accept the treatment I've endured all these years. What are you saying? My mother asked cautiously. I'm saying that if you want a relationship with me, it needs to be based on mutual respect. No more dismissive comments about my career. No more treating me like an afterthought. No more using me or my husband as business connections. My father looked genuinely bewildered. We've always supported you, Valerie. We paid for your education, gave you every advantage. You paid for Megan's education, I corrected. I worked 3 jobs and earned scholarships. And material support isn't the same as emotional support. Megan, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. Not everyone gets the same things in life, Val. Some of us are just better suited to certain paths. That's reality. I turned to her, seeing clearly for the first time the insecurity beneath her bravado. The issue isn't that we took different paths, Megan. It's that my path was deemed less valuable simply because it wasn't what they wanted for me. A flicker of understanding crossed her face. I guess I've never really thought about it from your perspective. That's part of the problem, I said gently. None of you have. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, circling through defensiveness, tentative acknowledgments, and cautious steps toward understanding. My parents struggled to accept their role in our fractured relationship, defaulting to justifications based on business necessities and family expectations. Megan, surprisingly, showed glimmers of genuine reflection, admitting to moments of jealousy that had fueled her competitive behavior. By the time we parted, no magical healing had occurred, but something had shifted. I'd spoken my truth without anger or accusation, simply stating the reality of my experience. For perhaps the first time, they'd been forced to listen. We would like to try, my mother said as we prepared to leave. To do better, I mean. That's all I've ever wanted, I replied honestly. In the months that followed, our relationship entered a new phase. Contact remained limited but civil. Holiday gatherings became possible, though still sometimes strained. My parents made awkward but genuine attempts to show interest in my design work, occasionally referring potential clients my way. Megan and I established a cautious friendship based on adult respect rather than childhood competition. The most profound changes, however, happened within me. Speaking my truth had broken something loose, releasing me from the desperate need for parental approval that had shadowed my life. I rediscovered joy in my work, approaching projects with renewed creativity and confidence. Alexander noticed the difference immediately, commenting that I seemed lighter, more fully yourself. Our weekend trip to the lake house became a regular retreat, a place to decompress and reconnect. During one such weekend, sitting wrapped in blankets around a bonfire, Alexander asked what I considered the most valuable lesson from the whole experience. I've learned that you can't earn approval from people who aren't equipped to give it, I said after reflection. My parents' limitations aren't a reflection of my worth. And success doesn't require everyone's acknowledgement to be real. That's profound, he said, stoking the fire. And difficult to truly understand. I've also learned that family isn't just who you're born to, I continued. It's who makes space for you to be authentically yourself. Sometimes those are the same people. Sometimes they're not. The healing process wasn't linear or complete. Certain comments still stung, old patterns occasionally reemerged. But I'd found freedom in accepting my family's limitations while refusing to be limited by them. I maintained civil contact while investing my emotional energy in relationships that nourished rather than depleted me. My design business flourished as I launched a firm specializing in sustainable luxury, blending my creative vision with Alexander's business acumen. I built connections with artisans and craftspeople who shared my values, creating spaces that reflected authentic expression rather than status-seeking display. Throughout this journey, I came to understand that true wealth isn't measured in luxury cars or elite connections. It's found in relationships that allow growth, in work that brings fulfillment, in the courage to stand firmly in your own truth even when others can't see it. The road to healing with my family remains long and uncertain. Some wounds may never fully close, but I've learned to walk that road on my own terms, neither abandoning hope nor surrendering my self-worth in its pursuit. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, know that your value isn't determined by their ability to see it. Sometimes the most powerful act of self-care is accepting that others' limitations are not your responsibility to fix. Have you experienced similar family dynamics? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their struggle. Remember, sometimes the family we create in life becomes more important than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and may you find the strength to stand in your truth, whatever that may be.